Imagine this. You're in a dark room, alone, your fingers tapping away at your keyboard, surrounded by glowing screens. You're not in some high-tech command center. You're not in the middle of a Hollywood blockbuster action sequence with lasers and guards everywhere. No sirens, no getaway cars. But you're doing something far more dangerous, something far more thrilling. You're about to breach the walls of one of Southeast Asia's biggest financial institutions and steal something that isn't just cash or gold. It's far more valuable than that. In fact, if you succeed, you could shake the entire global economy, control markets, manipulate systems, and make billions without ever leaving your seat. Sounds like a plot twist straight out of a spy thriller, right? Well, in 2009, this is exactly what happened. And the place? Bangkok Bank. This is the story of the 2009 Bangkok Bank Heist, where the hackers weren't after money. They were after something far more dangerous. And what they did shook the world in ways no one saw coming. In 2009, Bangkok Bank was not just any financial institution. It was a massive entity, operating in one of the world's most competitive regions, Southeast Asia. Founded in 1944, the bank had grown into one of the largest and most influential banks in Thailand and the surrounding region. It held billions in assets, served millions of customers, and, like any major financial institution, controlled enormous amounts of sensitive data. The kind of data that could bring down economies or make fortunes with a few keystrokes. And it turns out it wasn't just corporate executives or world leaders who had their eyes on this treasure trove of financial secrets. A group of hackers, some of whom were barely out of their teens, were about to pull off a heist that would rewrite the rulebook on digital crime. At first, this might sound like something out of a Hollywood blockbuster, right? A few hackers break into a bank, make off with the data, and vanish into thin air. But what they were doing was so much more dangerous, so much more profound, that it wasn't just about taking a few dollars or messing with the local economy. This was about global financial control, power on a scale that few people could even comprehend. It started in the most unexpected way, through a computer screen. It wasn't a traditional heist. There was no physical break-in, no flashy getaway. This was quiet, calculated, and, for the most part, invisible. These hackers, call them what you will, but they were not amateurs, used their knowledge of cyber systems to infiltrate Bangkok Bank's vast digital network. It was almost too easy. No locked doors, no fingerprint scans, just a simple flaw in the system. A tiny crack that, once exploited, led to everything: account numbers, corporate records, transactional histories, and confidential data about government contracts and corporate dealings. To them, this wasn't just data. It was currency, but not the kind you'd find in a wallet. It was the kind of data that could alter stock prices, manipulate the market, and influence the power structures of entire countries. But, and here's where things start to get truly interesting, these hackers weren't just after the money sitting in the bank's vaults. They weren't even after the million-dollar account balances or the shiny properties owned by corporate giants. No, what they were after was something far more precious. It was about control. The control over information, over the global economy, and over the people who could buy it. What these hackers had uncovered wasn't just a treasure trove of data. It was the foundation for reshaping power on a global scale. You see, in a world driven by finance, the information locked away in these systems could be more valuable than gold. This data had the power to change entire markets, send stocks into free fall, and make entire governments vulnerable. The hackers were so confident in their success that they didn't just sit back. No, they planned to sell the stolen data to the highest bidder. But here's where the story takes a turn. These hackers weren't selling to petty criminals or small-time players. No, they were selling to massive players, global players, organizations with vast resources and dangerous reach. These weren't just data buyers. They were the kind of people who could use this information for much more than making money. These were the kind of buyers who could manipulate entire industries, control stock markets, and perhaps even topple governments. They thought they were on top of the world. They thought they had the game in the bag. But then the truth started to unravel. What they didn't realize was that the very data they were trying to profit from had started to make them targets. The people they were dealing with? These buyers weren't looking for a quick buck. They were interested in something much bigger: global influence. And if there was one thing these hackers didn't fully understand, it was the sheer power they had just unleashed. These weren't just shadowy figures looking for profit. They were players in a much larger game, one that involved espionage, global financial warfare, and much darker stakes than the hackers could have imagined. Soon, the hackers began to feel the pressure. They had made deals with the wrong people. As they tried to offload the stolen data to the highest bidder, they realized that their situation had gone from bad to worse. They had no idea what they had gotten themselves into. The buyers weren't just after profits. They were after something much more valuable. And now the hackers were no longer in control. The game had changed. The clock was ticking, and every minute that passed felt like an hour. The hackers could feel the heat rising. They were running out of time. What they had thought would be a quick escape, a quick payday, was turning into a nightmare. With each new deal they made, they realized the depth of the mess they were in. The buyers, the ones they thought were just ordinary investors, were not ordinary at all. They had far more power, far more reach, and far more connections than the hackers could have ever imagined. And here's where things get really intense. As the hackers tried to cover their tracks, they realized they were being hunted. The people they had sold the data to weren't going to let them go so easily. In fact, they weren't going to let them go at all. The hackers, once so sure of themselves, were now pawns in a much larger game. What started as a simple data heist had escalated into something far more dangerous, something global in scope. But what the hackers didn't know was they had become a part of something much bigger than themselves. The data they had stolen wasn't just valuable, it was deadly. These weren't just financial tycoons they were dealing with. They were powerful global entities with access to classified government information, multinational corporations, and military contracts. The hackers' crime had become a point of no return. There was no going back. The deals were done, and now they were just trying to survive. The investigation that followed was swift and intense. Law enforcement began to close in on them, but by the time the authorities caught wind of what had happened, the hackers were already deep into cover-up mode. But here's the thing. Despite their best efforts, they couldn't erase the consequences of what they had done. The data, the stolen information, was out there, circulating in the world's most dangerous circles. What had started as a small-scale operation had now turned into an international game of cat and mouse, with the hackers in the crosshairs. So, what happened to the hackers? Were they caught? Did the buyers ever get what they were looking for? The truth is, parts of the story remain hidden to this day. The full extent of the stolen data, the players behind the deals, and the long-term effects on the global financial system are still unknown. But one thing is clear. The 2009 Bangkok Bank Heist wasn't just about stealing data. It was about control. It was about influencing the global economy, shaping markets, and manipulating governments. And it showed the world just how vulnerable we all are in a digital age. The hackers might have thought they were in control, but in the end, they were just pawns in a much larger game. And the people they were dealing with? They weren't playing by the same rules.